Today I want to show you how I've set up the A7 IV to be the fastest and easiest way to use for a hybrid solo shooter. Hey, my name's Jake and I create content here to help solo creators on the go. So I do lots of drones, cameras, lens reviews, and I do tips and tutorials on how to use them. So if that's something that interests you, consider subscribing. Today I want to show you how I've set up the A7 IV to be the fastest, quickest, easiest to use for a solo hybrid shooter, somebody who shoots both photos and video, and you need to get around quickly and be able to switch between modes as fast as you possibly can, and also get the highest quality you can. Now this may not work for all of you, but through this tutorial, you'll also figure out how to kind of set it up the way you want, but this is the way I want to set it up, and the way that works really well to be able to switch between photo and video modes and be able to shoot a lot of different types of content really quickly without really having to get into the menu. As we jump into this, I'm going to walk you through a few settings real quick that you need to change right off the bat, and one of them is the high temperature shutoff mode, because that turns the camera, or makes the camera turn off a little bit before it needs to. One tip is that if you're going to be operating for a long period of time, pull the screen away from the body, because that will allow a lot more heat to dissipate a lot quicker. So, but first we're going to go to menu, 42, and then we're going to go down to 49, power save option here, and click high, click OK, and then we're going to get out of that, go back up here. Next, we want to set up My Menu, because My Menu allows you to get at a lot of functions that you don't necessarily want to assign to a custom control, like formatting cards and airplane mode, things like that. So we're going to go into menu, My Menu. I've already added a lot of things, but we're going to go into My Menu setting, add item, and I want to add something where I can set the camera memory really quickly, because that's something I find I do a fair amount. So we're going to go here, we're going to go down to File, we're going to go down to right here to Memory, or Camera Set Memory. And we're going to add that to My Menu right under silent mode shooting. Next, I want to show you how I set up all the custom buttons and controls, because it can be a very powerful way of being able to get around the camera really, really quick and be able to use them to get things set and move through the camera quickly without ever having to get in your menu when you're shooting out on the road. So the way to do that is menu, we're going to go down to here, operation customize, and then custom key and dial set. I use the photo mode. There's one setting you have to use on video mode only, the key menu. Number one, it's kind of weird. They don't name it the same as what you see, but it's basically the AEL button toggle, which I leave the same. Number two is the autofocus manual focus switch right here. Number three is I use it to set focus areas. So you can click that real quick and be able to cycle through your different types of focus modes. Number four is display my menu. So number four is actually C3 over here. And that's just nice because you can hit it real quick. It brings up my menu, and then you can go down in here and get into whatever you need to get into. Number five, which is the trash can here, or C4, I use to be able to turn the touchscreen on or off. So if I am, say, I could turn the touch operation on, I could tap what I want to focus on, or what I want to track through a scene. I don't use touch operation all the time, but it's nice to have it quickly to be able to turn it on and off quickly. Now we go down to rear 2, which is this multi-use dial here and the multi-touch joystick here. And I have this set, this first bit is the audio signals, because I like to, that's just what I've been using for a long time. So if you push this down, it'll bring up a dialog that allows you to adjust audio signals. Now there's another option on this camera that we can use, which is this customizable dial here, that if you need to turn your audio gain up or down when you're recording, you can use that. And then I use the center button right here as my focus magnifier. So when I'm taking a photo and I want to make sure I get my manual focus set right, I can push that and jump in and punch in. It works in video too when I'm not recording. And then 3 is the drive mode. Number 4 is my ISO, so you can push it and then turn your ISO up or down. And then number 5, which is down, I use to lock my white balance. So that when I shoot in auto white balance, because the camera does do a good job in auto white balance, when I shoot in auto white balance, I can lock it and have it not adjust on me. Sometimes a cloud will go over or something like that, and you can see the white balance adjusting a little bit. So it's just nice to be able to have it, to be able to lock it really quickly. Go down here to the top. I set the shutter button to be movie on always, and I can show you how to set that up in a second. But so my number one is my live view display select, which means it switches between what it looks like to the camera at the moment to what it will look like when the photo's taken. I don't use that all the time, but it does come in handy from time to time. And then number 2 is my white balance. So if I push number 2, I can switch between all my different white balances really quickly and select what I need. And then we get here, I leave that as what it's set as default, which is focus hold on any lens. Now we get to the dials. So you've got the front dial, the rear dial, and then also this here, which by default is an auto exposure compensation, but I don't use it for that because I tend to set all my exposure manually, or I set it and then lock it. So what I've got is my front dial here is TV, which is the shutter speed. And then the rear dial here is the AV, which is the aperture. So front is shutter, rear is aperture. And then number 3, I set to Kelvin. So I can set it to Kelvin on the white balance and then swing through the different Kelvin values to get the Kelvin set to exactly what I want, which I find pretty handy when I'm shooting in a lot of different situations, especially indoor spaces. And then number 4, this you might not like it, but I have it set to ISO. So I don't have to push the ISO button. I can just start rotating the dial when I'm in getting ready to take a photo and change the ISO value as I want to. So I find that a little faster when I can just dial it in really quickly with my thumb. Now I said that there's 1 or 2 that you have to set up differently, because otherwise, basically on the video, I just have them all following the custom buttons on the photo mode because they're pretty much all the same and they're useful for all the same. But when you come down to rear 2, you need to change this one here to audio record level so that you can push that in and adjust the audio recording, or you can come over here, go back here, or you can come over here and come down to number 3 and you can change this to audio record level. So now when I'm in movie mode, if I want to change the audio recording level, I can do it right there, really quick and really easy, which makes it nice depending on what you're shooting. And also, here is where, if you keep coming down, you can set to record with shutter button, which just means that this button here becomes your recording button. All right, so we've got all of the custom controls set up the way we want so we can get in and out and around stuff really quickly and set the camera up quickly, especially when you're working by yourself or you're moving through really dynamic situations. But the other cool thing about this camera is you can set 3 different memory modes for photo mode, 3 different memory modes for video mode, and 3 different photo modes for S&Q mode. Now I've got them set up where number 1 is raw but high speed shooting. So as fast as it can shoot, it will shoot 10 frames a second, which is what this camera limits out on. Not great, but it definitely works. Number 2 is my just straight up regular raw photo mode that I use. That's just what I shoot most of the time. And then number 3 is interval mode, because I do shoot a lot of time lapses using this camera. So setting it to interval mode, it shoots RAWs. It's set to 1,000 or 2,000 photos. I think it's set to 2,000 photos, 10 seconds apart, because I do a lot of astrophotography. But the nice thing is I can easily push this, go down to my interval shoot function, and then change the settings that I want to change. Like if I don't want it to be a 10-second interval, say I want it to be a 5-second interval, really quick right there, and I can get out of it, and boom, it's set 5 seconds for 2,000 photos. And I said 2,000 photos because if you're doing like sunrise, sunset, time lapses, you just never know. It needs to go fairly quickly and make sure that, yeah, things are ready to go. Then if we switch to video mode right here, switch that little dial to video mode, I've got 3 more set up. Number 1 is 4K, 10-bit, 422, that's what I shoot everything in. Now, if that's hard for your computer to handle, you might need to dial it back to 8-bit, but that's what I like because it gives you the most amount of dynamic range, the most amount of color information in the camera, and it looks really, really good. But that's what that is. But that's the standard picture profile. So the standard colors straight out of the Sony, which I find in this camera are really nice, A7S III as well. Then if we switch to memory number 2, right here, that's where it goes into S-Log3, and this is where I shoot S-Log3 in 4K 30 frames a second, 422 10-bit, because I want the most amount of dynamic range, especially when I'm standing in front of snow-capped mountains that are in the sun, but I'm in the shadows. Dynamic range is extremely important. And then number 3 is my 4K 60, so my high frame rate, slow speed-ish modes to be able to capture 4K 60 and get some of that more dreamy sort of slow motion effect. If you switch to S&Q mode, I basically have everything here set to HD 120 frames a second, all my shutter speeds set properly, all my everything else is set right. Number 1 is the same thing. It's in standard mode, standard color profile. Number 2 is S-Log. 3, again, same thing. And number 3 is 120 FPS that it films in, S&Q mode, but then it conforms it to 24 FPS instead of 30 FPS. So when I'm shooting in 24, I can change it right there. Now, to change any of your settings as far as your file format and stuff, you're gonna go to the mode you wanna change. So photo mode, go to menu, and it's all up here on this image quality. Here you can switch between JPEG and high efficiency codec. I stay on JPEG, but that's because I shoot everything on RAW. So here you can switch between compressed, uncompressed RAW, or lossless compressed. And then if we switch over to video mode, this is where you can change all of your video mode settings. So here we've got image quality, file format. You can change it from HS, which is highly compressed. I use S because it gives you a good amount of quality, but also compresses it a little bit so it doesn't use up so much space. 4K, you can also switch to HD. And the SI is the least compressed codec, but it also gives you the highest quality, also takes up a fair amount of space. So I've found for my workflow, the S works best. And then if you go into movie settings, here you can set what you want your recording frame rate to be. And if you go back, here you can set what you want the quality to be. So I have 200 megabits and 422 10-bit because I shoot everything in that. But if you need to change it to 8-bit, you can. Now to set any of the camera memory settings the way you want to turn this to M in video or photo mode, and then go to menu, get to your image quality here, file format, we're gonna put that at 4K, we want that to be 30 and 422 10-bit because that's what I like to shoot on. Get out of that. And then you wanna set your shutter speed and your aperture to what you want. If you want to change your ISO value to, say, auto ISO, which is what I do, you can also set your white balance to auto or whatever you prefer. You can set your focus area to be, I usually use wide, and you can also set your focus, what type of focus you want it to be. And then, because we set up, you go to My Menu by pushing C3, and you go down to Set Camera Memory, then you choose slot 1, 2, or 3, and that's the way it works for all of the different memory settings. And then when you hit OK, it'll set that all of the settings for that in this camera memory. So then when you recall them, it'll just pop up to be whatever you have set for that particular camera memory. Now, if you want to take the lazy way, I've linked a file in the description. You can put it on an SD card or on a CF Express 8 card, load it in the camera, go down to your settings, and basically pull every setting that I've got, my whole camera set up the way it's set up, into your camera and have it ready to go. That way you don't have to fiddle through all of the menus and stuff like that. But it's still good for you to know how to do that in case something doesn't quite work for you and you decide that you need to change up your workflow. If you want to learn other tips about how you can improve your videography and photography, click or tap right there. I put together a small playlist. I'll see you in one of those videos. As always, if you have questions, ask me in the comments below or join my live stream Wednesday nights at 4 p.m. Alaska time, 8 p.m. Eastern. Yeah, I'll see you again soon in the next video. Cheers.